Giving God the honor, I want to thank you for the invitation to come and share with you. Thank you for that introduction, Dr. McDowell. And I want to say that I really have appreciated the hospitality that I've received since I've been here at Lipscomb. And I want to say to you, because you may not know, that as students, what you are experiencing here at Lipscomb is a sword that's pointing towards the new future. When I boarded the plane yesterday, coming to Nashville from Atlanta, we experienced some delay. And while I was waiting there at the gate, two students from Lipscomb sitting next to me. Chelsea was one, and Chelsea was the second one. Chelsea's, where are you? Okay, all right. They were so excited when I mentioned the word Lipscomb as I was on my cell phone as usual. And we got to talking, and they began to tell me about the trip they had just had to the Holy Land, to Egypt and places. And that was my first glimpse of what Lipscomb is like today. Not like it was yesterday, but today. When I began to see all of the different ethnic groups that are gradually and increasing, and the administrative position of Ms. Tennille Buchanan, and which is just such a lovely person and so well skilled, and a person who knows how to be in charge, and also a person who is gracious in taking charge. I said, things have changed, and perhaps they will never be the same. You have the opportunity now to look at the world differently. But more importantly, you have the opportunity to make a difference in the world. Not just your community, but you could start there. That'll be a good place to start. And looking at ways in which you can transform relationships so that those relationships become family and community. I've just been so impressed with the unusual opportunity that you have. And when I read the literature about Lipscomb, they're talking about global experiences and people traveling around the world, and this is great. You have such an opportunity now. Don't miss it. If there's an opportunity for you to go abroad, get on the bus. And if you're going around the world, get on a plane. Because what your life is going to be will no way parallel what our lives have been. So I say to you that I know a good thing when I see it. That's one of the advantages that you have of living to be older. You get to know the difference between a thing and a good thing. You have a good thing. Now I want to quickly tell you a bit about the experiences I've had, and there'll be an opportunity for some questions and answers at a later point. But the first thing I want to say is that Nashville has a uniqueness in the movement for social change. It was just not another place where some protest or some sit-ins or some movement activities took place. First of all, Nashville had a history of good race relations among people who were striving to make those changes. For an example, in Nashville back in the 50s, late 50s and the 60s, you had black city councilmen, elected officials on the city council. That wasn't true in southern states. The city council, okay? Our lawyer, Luby, okay? Ennis was another lawyer, and attorney Avon Williams, he was another lawyer. They stepped forward. And they were the ones who defended us in the sit-ins. The other thing, at Fisk University, you had an institute for race relations. So black and white people have been doing things together all the time in Nashville. That was a kind of a uniqueness to it. The other thing is you had a Nashville Christian Leadership Council. This was a local chapter for the organization that Martin Luther King helped to found, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. You had a strong NAACP in Nashville. You had also the Congress of Racial Equality, CORE, was in Nashville. So you had represented these national organizations right here. And during that period, we had about 25 institutions of higher education. That's why Nashville was called the Athens of the South, still is. And on the exact replica of the Parthenon, nowhere else but Nashville. It represents something. Nashville was the only place that had a larger number, okay, than the other place, of white students who were involved in the sit-in movement. The fact is, the first person who was arrested in the sit-ins here in Nashville was a white exchange student, Paul LaPratt. Yes. So what I'm saying is that Nashville became a symbol, okay, of that social change that we were talking about. Oh, we had problems in Nashville. Like, for example, we had blacks on the city council, but guess what? They had separate restrooms in City Hall. People who were making the law of the city could not share the same restroom. Yes, there was some paradox and ironies there, okay? But Nashville was on the move. The movement, which we call the Freedom Rides, first of all, the goal was not to desegregate buses, no more than the sit-ins had to do with desegregating lunch counters. It had to do with combating a false myth and notion that blacks were inferior to whites and whites were superior to blacks. These segregation laws and practices were only manifestations of the oppressive efforts to imbue in the minds of people that there was a difference between black and white other than color. And that was inferiority and superiority. The people who suffered most from this were young white people who grew up thinking that they were superior to blacks. Now, as blacks, we were already told that that was not true, but it was unfortunate. And the people that I've held more sympathy for was the misguided white youth who were told that because of the color of their skins, they were superior to somebody, and they act that way around the world. That was not fair. That was not fair, nor was it right. God made all men and women equal in his sight. How can we read that on one hand and ignore it in our social practices towards each other? So what the movement was about was dispelling this myth. It came in many forms. Segregation was only for the purpose of trying to enforce this false idea in the minds of people. Now, it was not true that blacks could not eat at lunch counters or could not have food at lunch counters downtown. Could always go and stand up and take out. You just couldn't sit down. There was something about sitting down. See, most segregation was, you might say, horizontal. It's when people sat down together. That's what they wanted, to make sure they were separated. You know why? It's because, like the Lipscomb students I met yesterday, we were sitting down at the waiting area of the airlines there at the gate. Because we were sitting down, we began to have a conversation. When you sit down together, it implies social equality. Yes, sitting down together, eating together, in the waiting room together. So, in order to perpetuate the myth, they had to keep people separated, because otherwise they'll start talking to each other and they'll discover that they have something in common, like we were all coming to this worship service today. We discovered that by sitting down, talking. And we've got to do more of sitting down and talking. That's how we learn about each other. And guess what? We also learn about ourselves when we're sitting down talking. That's what that was all about. Same thing was riding the buses. Why do you think they put the blacks in the back and the whites in the front of the bus? It was to show that one group was superior to another group. Now, I didn't say anything in those days, but I can tell you now, okay, because I feel more comfortable. But I used to question the wisdom of white people who fostered that kind of thing, putting the white folks in the front and the black folks in the back. And they're supposed to be superior in their thinking, and most of the accidents that happen on the bus are in the front of the bus, and most people got injured in a wreck were on the front of the bus. And they're superior? I ain't want that kind of superiority. How many times have we had to step over bloody white bodies in the front of the bus trying to get off? I felt sorry for the young white people who were being told these things. No, in God's sight, we're all equal. And people who make those kind of rules and regulations are people who don't have our best interests in mind, the interests of the whites nor the blacks. No. We've come to a new day now. Thank God that I'm here to see the new day coming. As I stand here and I look in your faces, I see a new day. I'm okay. I'm okay now, because you're going to have to take the torch. But not only in this country, you're going to have to take it around the world. Thy kingdom come on earth. On earth. That's what we're talking about. The kingdom is coming on earth as it is in heaven. People ask me, well, what is it that made you stand up and risk your life and drop out of school? The people you see here, when we went on the Freedom Ride, we dropped out of school in the middle of our exams. Yes. The people you sit in here. There was a more important test. Now, the uniqueness of Nashville is that, for example, in my case, if you were going to go on the Freedom Rides in May of 1961, if you were not 21 years old, you had to have parental permission. Your parents at age 21. That's right. Parental permission. So, John Lewis and I had decided we were going, and he was already 21 in February. I wasn't going to be 21 until July. We both applied, but they told me I had parental permission. So I sent the papers off to my parents. One finished the 8th grade, the other finished the 7th. I was the first one in my family to go to college. And in Tampa, Florida, I was in Nashville in school here, American Baptist College over here. I sent the papers off, and then I didn't hear anything. I made a phone call, and I said, Daddy, did you receive that, the forms that you had to fill out? I mean, you had to sign. You don't have to do anything, just sign and send them back to me. I need them right away. You know, sometimes you have school forms and things that they have to fill out, applications for, financial aid, so, that kind of thing or whatever. And so I said, just send them back right away. And my father said in his stern voice, do you think we didn't read this? I said to myself, I hope you hadn't read it. Yeah. Hope you hadn't read it. He said, we're not going to sign your death warrant. So going on the Freedom Rides was already considered something that was so dangerous that it was not even expected that we would survive. That would have been the miracle. Survival. So I couldn't go with CORE. But when the Freedom Rides were stopped in Anniston, Alabama, by the bus being burned, and also in Birmingham, Alabama, when they pulled the people off of the Trailways bus and beat them unmercifully, then the Freedom Rides came to a temporary halt because it was too dangerous, no protection for them. There were people who tried to kill them. They held the door of the Greyhound bus after they threw the incendiary bomb on the bus, and it broke out and fire all over the place and smoke. And there were people on the outside who were holding the door so that the people could not even get off and escape the fire. And thank God for brilliant minds. One of those Klansmen out there said, this bus has a gas tank on it, and if that gas tank explodes, not only will it kill the people who own the bus, but the people who are holding the door. Let's go. They took off. That gave the opportunity for the people to escape without losing their life. It was dangerous. Yes, we knew that. But you see, when CORE suspended the rides, I didn't need parental permission, because those from Nashville took charge. We said, no, we can't halt the Freedom Rides. Diane Nash had just gotten out of jail down in Rock Hill, North Carolina. She was fresh out of jail. She came back to Nashville. John Lewis had temporarily gotten off of the rides to go to Philadelphia to make application for an overseas project and rejoin the march, the Freedom Rides. They came through Nashville, and they said, let's go. And we said, when do we go? They say, now. Nashville, okay, was unique because Diane said that we cannot wait until the fires and the cinders cool and the smoke disappears. We must go and strike while the iron is hot. Because we've been trained by James Lawson Jr. on strategies of nonviolent social change. Not just how to make a protest, but how to change things. That's why SNCC was founded in Easter weekend of 1960. There was no coincidence that Marion Barry was the first chairman. In fact, we had more chairmen of SNCC, national chairmen, came out of Nashville than in the other sit-ins. John Lewis, Marion Barry. That's no coincidence. No. Nashville has always taken the lead. But not only did the students go, once we ran into violence in Montgomery, Alabama, guess what happened? The ministers left their churches and joined us. The thing that was unique about Nashville is that we were not sort of renegade students. These were our professors. Can you imagine being joined in jail by your faculty member, your professor? Yes, they showed up. C.T. Vivian was my homiletics professor at American Baptist College. Can you imagine that? Jim Lawson, he was our teacher and our trainer. He was now in jail with us. There was something very unique about Nashville that made the difference. And that freedom ride, had it stopped, it would have been very difficult to get it started again, I predicted. But because we struck while the iron was hot, 400 other people joined us on that freedom ride and went on to Jackson, Mississippi, in spite of the violence. William Barbee, a Nashville native, on that day when we were mobbed at the bus station in Montgomery, Alabama, those of you who saw the film, The Freedom Rides, he was from Nashville. And they threw him down on the pavement there on the bus parking lot, and a man put his foot on Barbee's neck. I saw it with my own eyes. I saw John Lewis being hit with a crate. I was standing next to him, Coca-Cola crate. I can tell him and I can describe what happened since he was hit. Okay, I saw it. I saw Jim Swearick being beaten and picked up and knocked down again over and over this rail. I saw it. William Barbee, the man put his foot, his Brogang shoe on his neck, and then another one forced a lead pipe down his ear. I saw the violence. But the ministers in Nashville did not leave us. They came and they joined us. They were in jail with us. They were on the buses with us. Yes, that was unique. I don't know how many other cities where you had sit-ins where the adults joined the students physically. Support was there, yes, but I'm talking about putting their bodies on the line. The result of that is that Mississippi Summer and all the other campaigns that happened in Mississippi was when you had large numbers of people coming in. You had a large, significant number of whites who joined that freedom ride. Mississippi was never the same. And our training, and that's what I do basically, is train people in nonviolence and how to set up centers and institutes and how to integrate those courses into a curriculum and certification in nonviolence and peace studies and social change. That's what I do all over the world. We have 22 centers. In our teachings, one of the things that we say that you can never, and I got this straight from Martin Luther King, you can never succeed in a revolution, whether it's violent or nonviolent, unless you're able to win the sympathy, if not the active support, of the majority. The Freedom Rides brought large numbers of people into Mississippi, white people, young people, people who were committed to change. There is no coincidence that in Selma, Alabama, we had 4 people who were killed in that movement. One was black, Jimmy Lee Jackson, and the other 3 were white. Yes. That's why things began to change, because they saw. President Johnson made a speech, and he said, one good man has died. A lot of people interpret that to be able to say that because he was white, he was a good man. That was not what Johnson was saying. That group of Unitarian ministers had already gone to see President Johnson 2 days before they went to Selma. In other words, President Johnson knew Reverend Reeves personally. He had met with him. One good man. He was a man of the cloth. That's what he meant by a good man. So what we're saying here is that once we were able to win the sympathy and support of the majority, we knew that we could see the end of the revolution there in terms of that change. We're passing the torch. It's yours. Underlying all of the laws and all of the policies and procedures and civil rights activities, there has to be a moral basis to it if we're going to bring about change. You can change the law, but you won't change behavior unless people embrace the moral component of change. We must change hearts before we change minds. And we must change hearts and minds before we change behavior. Martin Luther King, when he stood up, he had the Constitution of the United States of America in one hand, the laws of the land, but in his other hand, he had the Bible. Oh, yes. No law can stand on its own with any moral authority without the sacred word. The sacred word, not just some poetic words, the sacred word. In conclusion, I'll say this. We can't take the credit for being so smart and being so strategic, okay? No. We were spirit-led. That's why we took the action we took. In fact, we took more action than we did thinking, which means we act based on what we know to be true. But we did our acting, and I say we act our way into thinking. We act our way into thinking. Because we had a moral imperative. We knew what we were doing was the right thing, even though we could not articulate it. The articulation came later. We were moved by the Spirit, and that's what the movement is, a movement. Finally, when you think of life, it's a short trip. No, it's a short trip. Yeah. Love your parents and your grandparents and your uncles and aunts. Give them a hug, because you don't know how long they're going to be here. We don't know how long we're going to be here. Make every day a sacred day. Let love reign. And I know people have differences and they have arguments and all that kind of stuff. Don't let your family disintegrate over somebody saying something unfortunate, slip of the tongue. You take the responsibility to mend those relationships. You take the responsibility of strengthening the relationships in your family and your brothers and your sisters and those distant cousins. Don't let them be so distant. I don't care. There's some people who have broken families, they call them. No family is broken. It's a matter of patches that can be brought together into a quilt. Yes. Your value is not your pocketbook and your bank account. Your worth in life, if that's all you are worth, you're not worth very much. Your worth has to do with your worthwhileness. I'm talking about being wild about it. Your worthwhileness means that you are valuable to other people. That's how you determine your worth. How many people will miss you when you're gone? Make your life valuable and make it worthwhile. But when you have that moment in your life, stand up for truth. Some people say, don't rock the boat. I say, turn it over. Stand up for what you know to be true. Don't stand on a fence. Life is too short. People say it's none of my business. Whose business is it? Injustice anywhere, as Martin Luther King said, is a threat to justice everywhere. What affects one person directly affects every one of us indirectly. We're only one garment weaved together, and that's global. So I want to say to you, take the torch, run with it. This life is not a 100-yard dash, it's a relay. You will have grandchildren that will live in the 22nd century. Yes. We've done what we could do with our century. It's up to you.